Welcome to Homekeepers. Good to be with you today, my friend. Hope things are going well for you. And are you going to be glad you tuned in today? I have mentioned, I think a few times, there's nothing like a great testimony for what God has done for some individual. And Margo Holmes has been on with us before, and I have her children's books here. We're going to talk about those. I hope you will really be wide awake when we talk about them. But she's also written this book, Oh, the Wonder, and it's her personal story. And I'm telling you, it gave me goosebumps. If you ever denied the power of God before, you won't after you hear her. According to the standards and what we know about life these days, she should be on drugs somewhere, maybe completely gone out of this world, the way she was raised. And telling you, when you're around her, you know you're with someone triumphant who knows the Lord. So his power has no limit. You've got to hear this story. And I'm going to join Stephanie, and don't write to me because this is a bad recipe. It's fudge. We're making a fudge. I think it's got 3 or 4 different ingredients in it. And I want to tell her about a fudge story I have. I don't know if everybody has a fudge story, but I've got a good one. Great memories, from when I was a little girl. Before I join her, though, I want you to have the booklet, 199 Promises of God. I'm telling you, we are going through a situation in this country of ours, several situations that are just shaking, and everything that can be shaken is being shaken, I believe. But God's Word hasn't changed, and this is a little booklet you can carry in your purse and remind yourself always of God's promises. It's yours for any gift to the program. That's a good deal. You choose what you'd like to give. The address is on your screen, as well as an 800 number, and we'll get it out to you. Box 6922, Clearwater, Florida, 33758, and that credit card number is 1-800-229-0059. And now I've joined Stephanie. This is the easiest fudge recipe in the world,
So
isn't it?
easy. I'm going to start it and get it in the microwave, and then you can tell your story. How about that?
Yes.
Okay. I have 2 cups of dark chocolate that I'm putting in a bowl with 14 ounces of sweet condensed milk and a 1/4 cup of butter. Okay?
That's it.
90 seconds.
And you don't stand and stir it.
No, you don't stand it. It comes out smooth. It doesn't come out grainy like when you use sugar. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to put this in the microwave for 90 seconds, and you're going to tell your fudge story.
Well, I know they're sitting there with bated breath waiting to hear it. But I've got a lot of history, friends. I go back when I was a little girl. I remember the Second World War. And we tried to do things for the soldiers. And so my mother would have some of the ladies of the church come in and make a lot of fudge to send to those soldiers and in different parts of the world. And it was so much fun for me. I'm sure my mother was glad when everybody left, but it was that old-fashioned kind. And I like this a whole lot better because, as Stephanie was saying, the other had a lot of sugar. It could really be very, very grainy. But I remember them stirring and chopping nuts, all the women from the church. And we've never really been without a war. And those wonderful church ladies everywhere, they try to serve the veterans, no matter where they are, no matter what the war is like. And God bless those women who try to send something comfortable from home.
We got together when my son was in Iraq. A whole bunch of us got together and made cookies. And we put them in we cleaned out Pringle cans and put them in the Pringle cans so they would survive the trip. And I'll tell you, that meant so much to them to get something homemade from home.
You can only imagine. And there's always some war going on around the country, but it's, like you said, when it's from home, and
it just means everything.
Yes. Yeah, you could go buy some cookies and send them, but there's nothing like homemade and like Mother doing it and all. And this.
Okay, I'm going to mix this up.
And I have a confession to make, because I think we all always should be honest and truthful.
Yes.
I ate a piece of it.
Yes.
And
how could you not? Wait till you see it.
Well, I want to tell you, I like this better than that grainy stuff you cook on the stove.
Oh yeah, I have a fudge story too.
What's your fudge?
I have vanilla here and I have some walnuts. So I'm not going to throw my mother under the bus. I'm just going to say
Your
my
mother's watching.
mother tried to make fudge one time. Tried.
That wasn't her gift.
It was not her gift, and we still joke about it to this day.
What went wrong with it?
Well, you could drink it.
Oh.
That's what you could do. So
Let's see. What would you do? Throw a few more chocolate chips
I would
in
just
it?
put it over ice cream. That's what I would do.
Oh, yes.
Okay, I'm going
There
to
you
put some chopped up nuts, and I'm going to leave a little bit of nuts for the top.
And this is a loaf pan.
I'm going to ask you to spray that because we didn't spray the first one, and Susan said it really stuck.
Yes.
So you spray that, and then all you do is you put it in a parchment-lined pan, which, do yourself a favor, use parchment paper,
You know, Susan,
and then you put it in the fridge.
Susan is such a blessing
Yes.
to us. And last week we did a show that was a lemonade pie. It had 3 ingredients, and I was apologizing all over the place for it. And she said, "Oh, I like those with 3
Yeah,
ingredients."
because she cleans
it
up
up,
after
yeah.
us. Okay, so I'm going to smooth this out. I'm going to put some nuts on top.
Put the nuts on top of it.
And then you put it in the fridge and it just chills. Now wait till you see this beautiful...
Do you know what else I was thinking? Put this in your Christmas file.
Okay, well, here was what I was going to say, and I totally forgot because you told your fudge story. I'm making charcuterie boxes for all the adults. This recipe will be going in that box for sure, because look at this.
I tell you, it is just delicious.
It is amazing.
Yeah.
Look, it's gorgeous. I
can't tell you
kind of
how
want
good
to
it is.
taste it, but okay, I'll taste it. I want that little pan, okay, makes 36 1-inch pieces.
And I couldn't believe really how big they are.
Yeah, 'cause it's
One
really
piece
thick.
is very satisfying, I'll tell you that.
It's so good.
Do you feel like you're just in another planet? It's very creamy.
For something that's so easy, it's delicious.
It's called 5-Minute Chocolate Fudge.
Get this one for Christmas, for real.
Yes.
Get it for Christmas.
You know, there's a lot of reasons you might want to have this recipe in your library, because this is stuff you can have on hand and really surprise people. Okay, we give our recipes away, so you let us know how you want us to get it to you. That information is coming up on the screen. We can email it to you, or you can write to us. It's all coming up. We'll get it to you. If you haven't met Margo Holmes, you are really going to be blessed and moved and thankful to God for his power. So stay. You got to hear her story. Stay right there.
If you would like a copy of today's recipe, you may receive it by contacting us through social media as listed on the screen. When requesting a copy through the mail, be sure to include a self-addressed stamped envelope. Thank you, and please know we always appreciate hearing from our viewers.
It's always nice to have Margo Holmes come back. She's joyful, she's talented, and I want to go over some of her talent here in the books. We talked about this one before, and this is the story of the woman at the well.
Yes.
And she gave her a new name and all, and little fiction in it, maybe add to it.
I just brought her to life.
Uh-huh.
And just, I wanted to, really my heart is just that I always felt that she was judged too harshly because people didn't know what went on in her lives, which is what we do every day. And so I just wanted to write about her to open up people's eyes to the heart of judgment we automatically have and that needs to be changed.
Yes, and I think those kind of treatments of a story open it up a whole lot bigger that might lead you to what really was going on. This one, Little Maid from Israel.
And she's my favorite character in the Bible, and she is my favorite character because of the forgiving heart that she had. She has a heart more like God than I think. You know, David was a man after God's own heart, and this little girl had the same kind of heart. She forgave her captor so much that she wanted to see him healed.
This,
yes, she is. And what I love is I love taking a character that has no name and giving her a name, or not a name, but she's just called a little maid from Israel. And she was an Israelite, and when the Syrian soldiers came in, they took her away captive to Syria, away from her homeland, away from her family, away from everything she knew. And she became the Naaman's maid. And so, but what transpired was that there was so much love in her heart. She just wanted to see Naaman healed. She loved her mistress. She loved her master, who was Naaman at the time. And she just said, oh, if only he could get to the God in Israel, he'd be healed of his leprosy. That's a pure heart.
Absolutely. Now, let me tell you something. If you've got grandchildren or children, you need these books, and I'll tell you why. They are foundational in biblical theology. Love, the resurrection, fruit of the Spirit, understanding communion, Jesus asking for his disciples to follow him, Acts of the Apostles, Second Coming, water baptism, prayer, and then we're back to the little maid. Now, the reason I say this is because a lot of our churches don't have Sunday school anymore. And I have a pretty good education in theology, but I think I got most of it in Sunday school when I was a little girl. I've been to Bible college, all that. This is so well done, and you can put the foundational truths of God's Word in these little children. What age do they start on these? Because these can go on up, you know.
You can read them to children who are 5. They could read them themselves when they're 8 or especially 10 or even up to 12. Adults love them. They love to read them because adults understand the concepts better than they ever did before, trying to on their own, just listening to a sermon. And because they go from salvation to Jesus is coming again,
basis, yeah.
It covers the basics, the basic truth of each of the, the theories in the Bible, and so it gives the child a foundation. It gives us a foundation, and it's a way to talk to them. And the illustrations are wonderful.
And look, the illustrations, but there's real content here. It isn't just, a 4-sentence poem. There's some real theology here. I think it's brilliant, and I absolutely commend you for it. Okay, we want to talk about this one. Oh, the Wonder, Held and Healed by Jesus. And you know what, Margo? I just want you to tell your story. We've got time. I want you to tell it. And if I think of things that you're not right on, I'll interrupt you a little bit. But she is an absolute trophy of God's grace. I think this is a book about child abuse, no question. And that term is thrown around quite a bit. But this one, I think, is very visual because she's such a good writer. What kind of a home were you born into?
It was poor. My parents were reported for child abuse. My father was an alcoholic. My mother was one of those women who just was easily confused and dominated, and really a simple woman who didn't know how to strike out on her own or with us. But then there were a lot of threats that if she did leave, that he would kill us, he would kill her. And they were believable threats. Our home was nasty. It was just filthy.
I'll bet you got a clean house today.
Yes, everyone can attest to that I do. Anyone comes to my house, it's ready for company.
I think it's interesting that a little girl might notice the filth and everything. Did you compare it with other people's houses?
I never went to other people's houses.
You just knew it wasn't good?
I knew I didn't like filth. I didn't like roaches crawling across my feet. I didn't like it when I went into the bathroom and there was mildew and mold that just clung to everything. It was nasty. It wasn't just dirty or messy. It smelled bad. It felt bad, and it was really, probably should have been condemned.
Yeah, should have been bombed maybe.
Right.
And how old were you when you noticed this is just awful? This There's got to be something better somewhere
Probably about school age, because when I got to go to school, school wasn't nasty. School didn't have creatures and things that smelled bad and felt bad, and I think that was probably when I became aware that things didn't have to be in that condition. Because like I said, I never went anywhere. I didn't have friends, and I wasn't really allowed out, and I was so shy. If you'd asked me, I would have just physically gone under the table. So probably school, when I saw the rest of the world.
And how were you? You had other siblings, right?
I had an older sister. She was born January 15th, and I was born December the 7th. So we weren't quite 11 months apart. I had a brother who was 2 years younger, and then I have my younger sister who's almost 12 years younger than I am.
And how were you treated by your parents?
I was not favored. Actually, I did have a bit of an attitude according to their way of thinking, because I wanted things clean, because I wanted to be more normal. And when I tried to be that way, they would ridicule me. And
they made fun of you because you wanted the place cleaned up.
Yeah. I was Miss Goody Two Shoes and Miss Uppity Up. And if I tried to speak the way, with correct English, I loved English when I was in school. And so I was kind of like the white sheep of the family. They sensed my attitude. They thought it was an attitude of, you think you're better than we are. And I guess in a way I did, because I wanted to be better, and they sensed that and they resented it.
Mm. What about physical discipline?
There wasn't discipline, there was just abuse. My father, at one time when he slugged me in the ear, and I couldn't hear for about 2 weeks. Later my hearing came back, but I still have a certain hearing loss that I can't hear certain sounds in that ear. But it was mostly just lashing out, or he would be in rages, because he was drunk most of the time, and so he would just be determined he was going to kill us all, and we thought it was quite possible. He would go he spent a lot of his time at the bar that was about a block away from the house, and he would bring his friends home, and they would have brawls in the front yard, and he'd get put in jail, and then my mother would get him out of jail, and actually the neighbors reported them for child abuse, for us.
What would set him off? Anything?
Anything. If my mother...
If you're drunk, it doesn't take anything.
No, and he was just an angry, unhappy man, and she would bring him supper, she'd bring it to him, and if he wasn't satisfied with it, I remember one day she was standing at the stove, and he was upset about something, and he just took the plate and threw it into her back. So we never knew what was going to, you walked around terrified all the time.
Sound like a house of horrors, really.
It was.
Now, at one point, did you run away, or did they send you away?
Several times, really, I ran away. I can remember the one time when I was probably around 10 or so, and he was in one of his rages, and I was just scared. And so it was actually right by close to Channel 13 TV station, and there was a little drugstore there, and I never had any money, but my brother and I would collect bottles, and for 2 cents we could turn them in for a popsicle. So anyway, I would go into there, and a woman who was a waitress there had befriended me, and so I was just scared of what he was going to do, and so I ran down there. I mean, I was barefoot, and just ran down that hot sidewalk, and I remember running into her and saying, "Mary, give me a nickel, give me a nickel. I've got to call the police." And so I ran outside into the phone booth, and I called the police and told them, "Please come get me before my father gets here."
How old were you?
I was probably around 10 at that time, yeah.
Boy, that takes a lot of guts.
No, just terror. I had no guts.
You had no... So you were not really that afraid of the consequences?
Oh, I was afraid of what he was going to do to me. I wasn't afraid of I wanted the police to rescue me.
What did the police do?
They... actually, my father got there first, and he dragged me home, and he was beating me. When they arrived, he put me out, in the room, and told the police he didn't know what was the matter. I was just this bad child, and they called in a children's services woman, and she came and talked to us and talked to my father, and I knew the whole time that as soon as she left, it was going to be worse. And
he lied like a rug, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, she's just this rebellious, hateful little child.
Boy, that's just grabs my heart when there's nobody there to really really protect you.
Yeah, there
no
never
one.
was.
You had everybody there. You had child services, you had police, you had parents, and there's. Now, how old were you when you ran away?
I was 13 or 14 the last time, and a girlfriend and I just didn't go home from school, and it was, I only had the clothes that I had on. It was just a little sundress, and she had difficulties at home, and so we just decided we weren't going home. Of course, we were just young. We had no plans. We just weren't going home. And so we didn't, and we ended up, actually we would go to houses that were being built but then had been abandoned, and so they had no doors or windows, but they just had the framework and the block work. And we stayed in those houses for about a week. And then the weather started getting cooler at night, and we started getting really hungry. I have a confession to make. It was the only time I was always just born with this be good thing in my heart, but we were so hungry, we went to this little store, and I stole a cupcake. So, Lord knows. Thank you. I stole a cupcake. But so anyway, I couldn't continue doing that. That wasn't in my character to begin with. I was just hungry. So we flagged about 3 o'clock in the morning. One morning we flagged down a highway patrolman and asked us, well, my friend wanted to go home. She wasn't abused. She was just neglected, and there were emotional issues in the family. So when they took her home, her parents we'd been gone for a week. They were just hugely relieved to have her back. And then I begged him to not take me home. And of course he did. And when he did, it was, it was dark outside and everything, but I remember my mother came out to the patrol car and I was sitting in the back. And so he was thinking he was going to deliver me up to a mother who was going to be glad to know where her daughter was. And she just told him to take me away. And he said, well, she hasn't done anything wrong. What can I do with her, And she said, I don't know, but take her away before my husband wakes up. And of course, she was scared of what might happen. So he thank God, he got on the radio and took me away. And that was what I wanted so much. And
can't imagine a mother saying, take her away. I want to back up a little bit. Before this, you went to a VBS, right?
Yes.
Margo, I have promoted VBS on here ever since I read several years ago statistics. I believe they were with the Southern Baptist. Mm-hmm. But that VBS is the best soul-winning dollar you can spend. And to think that you, in that horrible, I'll call it a hellhole because that's what it was, found Jesus there. Yeah. That was the first little seed.
Yeah. At 7 years old, I was in the yard, it was just dirt, and she just asked my mother if she could take me. She asked me first, and of course I wanted to go, which was remarkable because I was so scared to be out, and I was so ridiculed when I was out in public. And so I got to go for a whole week, and I learned Jesus loved me. I learned he died for me, and I didn't know anything for years afterwards, but I knew that.
Goosebump time.
Yeah.
Yes, and so looking ahead to next summer, be a volunteer.
Yes.
Give money, make sure your VBS is strong. We got to move along here. I read where you begged them to put you in detention. So, that was your happy place, I guess.
That was my happy place, and you would think that would be the worst place in the world, but I was safe because we were guarded most of the time, and so I didn't have to worry about the ridicule at school because I didn't have clothes that were nice, and because I didn't think I could learn, so I was not a good student because most of the time I was just scared to go home and grieving and unhappy and miserable. And so being there, to me, was a safe place.
Now, your father passed away?
My father passed away really while I was living in with my foster parents, where I went after the children's home.
Yes, and there was a time where she was with foster parents, but I want to move ahead because you become an adult, and you don't have the kindest thoughts toward your mother. Hello. And describe what it was like when the Lord visited you. This is a supernatural.
Yeah, it's a wonder. It's a wonder
yes,
what
it
he
is.
did for me.
That's the name of the book.
I don't naturally get mad at people. I get sad. But I resented my mother. And I don't usually resent people, but I resented that she didn't protect me when my father was hurting me, that she didn't love me and take care of me. And so I had not seen my mother for probably a good 15 years. And my grandmother, whom I'm named after, had died. her name was Lona in Tennessee, back Hill Woods, and I loved my grandma. And so I wanted to go to her funeral. When my mother was an only child, I knew my mother would be at the funeral. I'd actually written a letter to my mother and told her that I forgave her, but I had never talked to her, and she never made any more contact with me, so that was over. So I was actually concerned about being comfortable around her, because I was now a Christian. I had now forgiven her. But even when we've forgiven someone, the hurt needs to be healed.
Yeah, your memories don't go away.
No, unless God changes them. He changed everything, even memories, because they don't hurt the way they hurt when after you've been healed. And so I was seeing a counselor at the time in an effort to save my first marriage, and the counselor was praying for me, and I knew nothing about inner healing. I was very new into the Christian community and the terms they use. And she just stood behind me and she said, I want you to close your eyes and I want you to remember back as far as you can as a child while I pray for you. And she just began to pray for me. And I can be like a little child. So I just went back, and the thing that was remarkable was most people can only remember till about 3 years old. I was 9 months old. And it was though I became me. I was still me. I was me. But I was on the kitchen floor in Tennessee where we lived, and my father had my oldest sister in the sink, and he was bathing her, laughing with her. And my mother at that time was working, and she was leaving. And I remember sitting on the floor, and I had a cloth diaper on, nothing else. And I was about 9 months old, was not walking. And so I was watching my mother leave. And my father always preferred my older sister anyway, and all that felt, while he was laughing with her and everything, I could just feel all that. And as my mother walked away, all that abandonment that I had felt into my adulthood was there.
And actually, you and your mother became very close.
After this encounter.
Just an absolute miracle of God's grace.
Yeah.
Because it would be nice, when you accept the Lord, if all the bad memories would go away, but it's not that way. But I believe yours was so severe that God knew He had to do something special. And look at her, she's very triumphant. I mean, you can't fake.
We have the victory. He gives us the total victory. And when He comes and He heals us, because what He did was, He walked through the screen door. As my mother disappeared, He became this form that came toward me, and He reached down and He picked me up, and I was just sobbing uncontrollably.
And you can't fake that outcome. And to the viewers who are watching, remember there are prayer partners standing by right now, and maybe you identify a lot with this story. Take advantage of that, and please join me next time, remembering there's no higher calling than that of a homekeeper. God bless you.
If you should miss a Homekeepers program, you can catch up by going to www.ctnonline.com. Click on CTN Programs and then on Homekeepers.